Hello and welcome to the first 20th anniversary stream. My name is Paweł Burza and I am joined by a whopper of a guest, Marcin Iwiński. If you don't know Marcin, he is the co-founder and joint CEO of Projekt. Wow. Good to see you, man. How are you?
Wow. Good to see me and good to see you as well. I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure.
We are going to talk about ancient history, so that's why I'm here, right?
Yes, we're going to talk about Witcher 1. And the fun thing is that we're going to be doing these streams on a weekly basis. This one's pre-recorded, but the other ones will be live because, as you probably know, Marcin is a very busy man. But he managed to find the time for us to sit down and talk everything Witcher 1. And that will be the topic for today. We'll be going through the quest with Shani and the Grandma, which you might know if you played the game. If not, I highly encourage you to play the game, check it out, and this is the best time because it's 20 years of the studio, that's crazy.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy for sure, yeah.
So yeah, let's start off from the beginning. Why did you in the beginning decide to do Witcher as the universe of choice? So even before Witcher 1.
So it's a very long story, but we started as a games distributor. Me and Michał Hiciński, we co-founded the company right out of high school. I was telling the story. You can probably read all the details on the internet already. Mm-hmm. But at a certain point, we were distributing Interplay games, and we're super excited. We were invited to their offices in Irvine, in California, just before E3, and they showed us Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance.
Nice.
And Interplay, like the PC company at that time, everything was PC. Showed us the game. We were really shocked, how great it is. We enjoyed playing it. We had a chance to play it for a while. And we said, okay, so when this game is coming to PC, we're working in Eastern Europe with the games distribution. It was our only business at the time. And it was obvious, that Interplay will have this game for PC. And they said, no, it will be only on PlayStation. And we're like, wow, okay. So it's kind of bad for us because the install base of the console back then was practically non-existent in Eastern Europe. So we thought, okay, what can we do about it? And in the evening there was a small party for all the distributors they invited, and we asked one of our contacts at Interplay, hey Matt, and could we possibly maybe consider someone convincing you to make a PC version? No way, man. I mean, we're too busy. We have too many things, too many projects. And Matt said, why don't you do it? And we said, we never did any development, but
no
that
pressure.
was, but I think that was the initial small push that we needed, because we always thought about making our own games. That was, our dream. We're going to all this. I mean, we started the company as gamers, so we dreamt about making a game, but we started from distribution and we had no clue on how to make games. So we thought, okay, let's wait. But they started it. We came back home, flew back to Poland, and actually came across a guy from a city of Łódź. That's actually where Projekt was started. Yeah. And he had some technology. He said, like an engine, game engine, which he previously used in a shooter. And he said, yeah, porting, no problemo. Let's do it.
Easy peasy.
Okay, easy peasy, let's do it. We started porting Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance. We actually flew to Interplay in London. They had their European offices in London. And Matt gave us I think it was PS2 dev kit. Yeah. And we said, Matt, so what are we supposed to do? Just take it back home and work. We don't have any paperwork, so we smuggled it in our hand luggage. It was like a hefty piece of hardware. We gave it to the guy in which one said, hey, so please work on it.
Here it is, let's port it.
We need the PC version, please. But then after 2 or 3 months, we got a call from Eastern Europe and said, hey, the company's not in good shape. It was the beginning of the big trouble at Interplay. And they said, we'll not sign an agreement with you, so please abandon the work on the title. And, just sorry, and, it will not work out. So we said, okay, it doesn't look nice, but we already sold on this idea. Mm-hmm. So that was the sort of the development component. We're actually what we thought was the start of development. And we already sold an idea, hey, we would like to have our own game. And at the same time, back in high school, we were huge fans of The Witcher, read all the books, both myself and Michał. And Michał came up with the idea, hey, let's check that, maybe the rights to The Witcher would be available. And they were. We actually bought the rights from Andrzej Sapkowski. It's a long story how it happened, but we kept on asking. There was one small game in the development, it didn't work out, so we were able to get the rights. And we started working on The Witcher. So it's actually like what was our thinking behind it? We don't have experience in development. We would like to make RPG because these are our favorite games and we're huge fans of RPGs. That was what predominantly was our business about at that time. And actually, generally in Eastern Europe, RPGs were huge. So Torment, Baldur's Gate, all the Fallouts, and everybody was playing it, including us. So it was like no-brainer. Witcher RPG, let's do it. We kind of forgot that they're probably the most difficult games to make in terms of complexity. But we thought, okay, so this guy in Łódź has some technology. We'll license the IP from Andrzej Sapkowski, so we have the world, and then we'll only have to make the game.
So you're just combining the pieces.
We're trying to simplify and like limit the exposure to risk. Although I think it looks silly because we really had no bloody clue what we are getting ourselves into. But that was the thinking. So we thought, okay, the IP of our dreams, it's available. We definitely should pursue it. And I think with The Witcher, it was first of all a dream coming true, and second, it was perfectly suited for a game. What I hope our fans can agree with after all the releases we had.
Yeah, even me, like personally, I grew up with the books because I remember like reading them in schools for the first time, The Last Wish, which was like in high school. And
same here.
And I got so into it, and then actually I remember picking up Witcher 1, which we're seeing, and playing it for the first time. And this was where I felt like the world that I imagined in my head was actually in the screen in front of me. It was just so incredible, and that kind of has, set me.
I read the first story when it was for the first time published in the science fiction monthly, Fantastica.
Yeah.
So that was the moment, and then I was following every single thing that Sapkowski released until this very day. Nice,
that's incredible. Okay, so when you were starting actually the development on Witcher 1, what was the setting? How did the studio start forming? Because now it's a big company, thousands of people. Like, what was the early beginnings like?
It's always difficult, but I think that you have it in the stories of a lot of companies that they didn't know how hard it's going to be or what they're getting themselves into. And that's exactly our case here. We didn't know how difficult it is to make an RPG game. And I think if we would have known, we wouldn't have started. Like we could have been paralyzed with, fear, or we were always kind of audacious and quite brave in terms of decision making, but still it was an uphill battle for many years, like actually pretty much up until the very release. So how it all started. So we have the Witcher license, and we started with a prototype on the tech from the FPS guy based in Łódź. Initially just a couple of people. After about 9 months to a year, we had a demo. With Michał, we bought the most powerful notebook money could buy at that time.
Nice.
It was still kind of, hard on the FPS side.
Yeah.
Especially there was a demo. There was a tree with crows, flying off the tree at a certain moment, and it was really like hacking and stopping. Yeah, frame rate was dropping dramatically. And then we asked, Michał, can we get a better computer? No, that's the best one. So, and actually then I used all of because I was running our international business at the distribution and know all the contacts. So I used all the contacts to get meetings with all the key players. No digital distribution, you can go direct to consumer at that time, like direct to gamer. you had to go to a publisher.
Yeah.
We had our distribution in Poland and parts of Eastern Europe, but we wanted to get to the world. Otherwise, we couldn't afford making the RPG of our dreams. So we toured Europe. It was like 2 weeks. I don't know, 12 meetings or something. Germany, France, UK. We had a really lovely design doc. It was in a binder, beautifully framed with a nice logo. Everything was looking spectacular. Like, I don't know, 100 pages or something.
I saw like photos somewhere of that.
Yeah. I think we still have one in the boardroom, so you can take a look. It was super ambitious, and we threw all these guys. They knew us. They knew we are good partners, distributors. But at the same time, we pitched them, a very ambitious RPG. We didn't do any development before, so not whatsoever. So no track record, and I would say like the reasons to believe, what the hell, these guys are going to deliver anything. And then, out of this like 12 meetings or so, we got 2 responses.
Okay. And
these responses were like very politely telling us that rather no, because there's no experience as the game, is too big. Mm-hmm. So then we came back and we thought, okay, we are probably on the wrong path. We have to rethink everything. And at that time, we actually were departing for E3, and we visited BioWare. We were distributing their games before. We knew Ray and Greg, and we asked them a very silly question at their booth in West Hall. They had one. I don't remember what they were showing at that time, but anyway. How about, you could maybe consider licensing us your engine, yes? Because it would make things easier. And they said, we can think about it. And 2 months later, we had the code. We still didn't have the agreement. We had the code, and we started working on it.
So that was already promising.
That was promising. We decided to pass on the local Polish technology. We moved the few people we had over there to Warsaw, and we started working on the Neverwinter Nights engine. So actually, again, from a risk mitigation perspective, it was looking much more promising. So we had an engine from an RPG game. So actually, the quest structure and whatnot. We had a license of the IP that we love, which actually perfectly fits games, because, by the way, I was reading practically everything that was being published in terms of the fantasy and science fiction in Poland back then, and Witcher was one of the first things that both me and Michał thought that will work in a game, because even if I read fantasy or science fiction books today, I'm kind of like, this would be hard. How would you
Some
represent
of them are hard
it?
to kind of
How would it work in a game? Yeah, but this was perfect, and we started working on it. So after I think about 9 months, 10 months, we had the first prototype, and then another sort of silver lining, so to say. We were in touch with BioWare, and they said, "Hey guys, so why don't you come over to Edmonton and show us what you have? Because we can show your game on our booth at E3." And
that's
we're like,
amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, that's big already, right?
I mean, that was we didn't expect that. Just even like Witcher wasn't known. We were totally unknown as a developer, no track record, nothing. And suddenly the gods of RPGs invite us, to show them the stuff. So flew over to Edmonton. The build was crashing as hell. And we were super stressed because we were like, if we show it to Ray and Greg and they will say, guys, you should work more on it or something, then we're done. I think we'll just abandon everything, it will be the end. But we download a couple of builds being there, and internet
at that time wasn't as good as it is now.
So, and the builds were quite big, even for today's standard. Of course, not 50 gigs, but a couple of gigs.
Yeah.
So we made it through the night. We managed to run a pretty good presentation. They said, "Cool, we'll give you a place in our booth, and we'll."
That's awesome.
After we show our games, they were showing Jade Empire. the Xbox exclusive. I always want to say Xbox One, but I should say the first Xbox.
The first Xbox,
The
yeah.
first Xbox, Jade Empire was exclusive, and they had all the big names of the worldwide, gaming media, and they were showing them their stuff. And then I think behind the closed doors, Ray Musica was showing some concept graphics from Dragon Age, I believe.
Wow.
Like a super early
stage.
and then I think then they went quiet for like 5 years or something. But and then they were looking at all this stuff, and they were like, yeah. And we have these guys from Poland. They have a cool game, it's The Witcher, and we were there. We were there. We were noticed. So
from that point on, this was kind of the point where you had a little bit more like wind in your sails, where you were like, okay, they believed in us. Like
Yeah.
we're on a good trajectory, and that kind of started the development. And you started, actually, it's funny because whenever we do like studio tours here in the Warsaw office, like we always show this one room where everything started. So it actually started from that one room, right?
Yeah. We started. It will sound kind of cheap now, but actually, as our main business at that time was games distribution and publishing in Poland. We had like one room and then some additional space in our warehouse, which was strangely on the first floor, but that's another story. So we gave this space to the dev, and dev was slowly growing out there. But they had their own space, they could work on the stuff.
Yeah.
And the E3 was sort of like a proof of concept.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the game was liked by the press. The Gods of RPG, in the person of Ray and Greg, said they like it, that is promising, we should continue.
Yeah.
And so we did.
Yeah, that's incredible. And also the thing that you mentioned, like, I feel like fantasy at the time was slowly becoming more and more popular. Like you said, we had like Nova Fantastica, which is like I think it was.
No, it was just Fantastica without Nova.
It was without Nova. True.
Nova
is
new.
now.
Yeah.
So it was just Fantastica at the time. I remember my dad got me into those, so I also like started buying them and reading like the short stories. But it was growing, but no one actually would take The Witcher from Poland and push it out to the more like global world, right? So this was.
Yeah, at that time, the first translation of Sapkowski's book. So the first book was translated to English, like I think 6 months before the release of the Witcher 1.
Yeah.
So quite late actually, and first it was published only in the UK, so it was non-existent in the US.
Okay. So you started here, and then development started ramping up. So what were the challenges that you faced in the early beginnings? There were probably a lot, but I also feel like you got through all these hurdles in the beginning.
So I'm talking, as you have already noticed, I'm talking a lot about what happened externally and how did it work, what kind of deals we're setting up. So I wasn't running the development. Adam Kiciński was with Michał. We were of course constantly talking, but I was the guy traveling around, getting stuff done, preparing the shows and everything. And I was coming here and I was learning like, okay, we have a problem with this, or we've prepared everything, we have the whole world, and we have to cut. I think the most painful thing initially for the first probably 2 years was how the hell can we measure the size of the content we're producing, how it will work out in the game, because you can putting the costs and timing problems aside, you can create a lot of stuff and then it's empty. And actually, we've run into this problem several times, that we are overly ambitious. So the design doc which I've mentioned, and it was super huge. And then I think what the game actually is maybe 50% of it, or even less in terms just of the sheer scope of the number of locations. And still we had quite a lot of challenges with feeling this world and making it feel alive. It was progressing like Witcher 2, Witcher 3 and so on, but we didn't realize how huge it will be. we will actually put it into the gaming world. So, you know, the first cut, everybody's crying. It's a disaster. This game, you know, it's castrated. It will be worthless. And then the second cut, and then the third cut. And even after the third cut, it was super challenging to put it all together and making intriguing and interesting in terms of you travel to the world, through the world, and you see that it's living and breathing and stuff's happening around you, yeah? And it's not just an empty plane.
That's always the best part for me, like the NPCs, they're talking, there's things going on. You can see that everything is alive around you, so that's amazing.
So
but I have to kind of like structure the story around it and kind of how everything falls into one another.
And then obviously as you know, I like to think about us that we are always an ambitious bunch. There were crazy ideas, and cutting them to make things work was always super difficult, and it is until the very day, because at the end of the day, the game must be fun to play, and if you give up certain elements to make the other ones more polished and more fun, you know, you're rewarded for that. If you spread yourself too thin, it's really, really bad, because
you might be losing something, like the essence.
Yeah, like you're using the fun. Ultimately, people start playing. It's like, but I don't know. But the combat is not so good, or the quests are not so interesting. It doesn't matter that, you know, the other 5 mechanics are super duper cool. Yeah. So we're learning all this while working on the game, and here, you know, so initially what I've mentioned with the Neverwinter Nights engine, so it really accelerated us a lot. Like we had the prototype 9 months, 12 months from the beginning of the works, but probably halfway through the project, it was already complicating a lot of things, because, you know, it was already, when we licensed, it was an older engine. We had to rewrite a lot of stuff, and we ended up actually at the release of the game with 85 to 90% of our own code in the Neverwinter Nights engine.
Nice.
So,
so there was a lot of work put in also.
There was a lot of work, but if you do it, then you end up with a very complex structure of code. And I remember towards the end, cooking a build was a living nightmare. We're cooking a build, and then our guys were fixing the build to work. So I'm not sure how we made it to the release, but luckily we did. And Neverwinter Nights ultimately, I mean, Neverwinter Nights engine ultimately gave us a huge boost, and it was an amazing help.
Yeah, awesome. Did you ever think, while working on the project, like showing it and going to all these places, that this game in the future would also influence like the second Witcher, the third one? Were you already thinking past this, or were you just more focused on, okay, let's finish this project, let's get it out, let's see what people think about it?
I mean, so there are two things. It's actually a really good question, because yes, we planned the trilogy from the very beginning, but I would say we sketched a trilogy. So it's like, that was planned for 3, but, you know, it was just, you know, maybe a couple of sheets of paper, and that's it. But when you make your first game, especially of this size, you just think of how to get to the finish line and deliver something meaningful. And then, you know, like, again, looking at the story of a newbie developer showing up on the RPG scene with not so many companies back then, and today, I think it's pretty much the same. There's not that many companies delivering big RPGs. We had incredible difficulties to find a partner to get the game to the market. So we're going to the shows, because, you know, after the first BioWare show, the next one we already organized on our own. We got, you know, best PC RPG of the show here, there, you know. We had a lot of fan support, actually worldwide. Media were very helpful. They like what we were doing. They saw some freshness, you know, like the game, it's grayish in certain areas. It's not like a Baldur's Gate kind of fairy tale. No clear distinction between good and no high fantasy stuff. And that's actually why, you know, the books and the TV show are so successful, because they're different.
Exactly.
They're very, very different to what was there. But at the same time, when we're talking to the publishers, and at a certain point we started, you know, official pitching, so to speak. So we showed it during the shows, then we had meetings, and then we had, I think, 8 or 10 companies flying over here, both from US and Europe. The big guys who had the network, who could distribute the game worldwide and help us publish. And even without setting, the initial conditions, what we wanted, that this came later, and I'll tell this story in a second. They were looking at it. They were making due diligence. We had some really like 2 or 3 day due diligence of the studios, including that, the tech lead and me, and then the art lead. And some other leads that were close in different rooms with different experts from their side, and they were questioning them, asking them questions, and then putting it all together and looking at like cross-checking the answers. We were like, I want to say making like sort of an investigation,
internal investigation.
How does it work, and if we know how to deliver the game. And unfortunately, the conclusion were always, I mean, they were never telling us what were the conclusions. I was just answering phone calls afterwards, and I was actually, it was very helpful with my English. I was improving how to politely decline a project. So I was hearing very different explanations, and frankly speaking, it was really hard for me because we are very short on money. We needed funding to get the project to the very end. We financed it, like looking today, I think we financed probably 60% of it from our distribution proceeds, but we're making a game for the global market, and we're financing it from proceeds from distribution from Eastern Europe. So it was really, really hard. And then we found Atari, and we thought, we're there, they like it. We started discussing the terms. It sounded that we are in agreement.
Okay, good.
Good. And then we got the agreement, actually. And the agreement was saying something very different to what we've discussed. And like, not getting into the business details, the key part was that our condition was we keep the IP. We keep the intellectual property, the rights to which are ours. We have some, first options to make another game with Atari. Not, but what their legal sent us was like totally differently, almost like work for hire. It took me six or 7 months of negotiations, and we had like 2 calls weekly with their lawyers and our lawyers, and it was the first time for me. So again, super stressful. And we were running out of money back home. And finally we made it.
Nice.
We finally made it, so we could focus on building the release plan and getting the game to the market. It was like, I think another year from the moment we signed the agreement, and the game was out.
That's incredible. And you wanted, of course, to go as global as possible, right? That was kind of the idea.
Yeah. So like, okay, let's global mean like Western Europe and like Eastern Europe we're doing ourselves, and I want to go all Western Europe and US, and Atari wasn't in a good shape then, so they didn't have that big of a muscle in US. In Europe they were much stronger. And we are for the first time, because we were always deciding on publishing everything ourselves, because we are actually publishing other people's games here in Poland. We had quite some experience, and then we faced a few walls there. We had to convince a lot the Atari people. We released the game, and the game was quite successful in Western Europe, but it almost went unnoticed in the US. And again, we learned. I mean, I learned a lot of things. I remember when we released The Witcher, and I came at that time to have some business discussions with Atari. I came to New York, and I went to a couple of GameStops, and I'm going to a GameStop, and I'm looking at a naive first time, publishing a game with somebody else, and I'm come to a store. I'm saying, okay, so I was expecting I'll see a wall of Witchers or something. Oh, I cannot find it. I'm looking for W, you know, it's somewhere down on the floor. No. And then I'm asking the sales guy, hey, do you have The Witcher? I heard it just released, you know. And he's telling me, let me check in the system. And when they tell you, let me check in the system,
that's
they
not
have
good.
no bloody
That's already
clue.
not good.
You know, what's the game, you know? So then we had quite a lot of conversations with Atari, and they never told us, Atari US actually, they never told us, you know, straight that, hey guys, but you know, your marketing budget was, I don't know, for US was $3 million, so you couldn't even fund with this money proper 2 weeks in GameStop, not to mention other retailers. We learned it the hard way, but the game was so much supported by the community that actually, and this sounds totally crazy from today's perspective, the sales, especially in the US, were better the second quarter, not the first quarter when we released it. So the first quarter we went unnoticed, but then the hype was building among gamers, and they were asking the stores and asking the retail,
to actually put it on the shelves.
Can we get The Witcher? Can we get The Witcher? So we've accelerated. We started, I think, with 81 Metacritic or something like that. And we thought, okay, it's the first game. We had to get it out through the door. And Michał Kiciński came up with the idea, but come on, that's not really our ambition. We want to do better. And we spent a year working on the Enhanced Edition. And after a year, released the Enhanced Edition, which sold even better. And then, you know, it keeps on selling in this shape until the very day.
Yeah, Enhanced Edition is the one that I had. I remember it was like this beefy box with a lot of stuff also inside it. And I remember like picking up the game. But here in Poland, I think it was just, it was everywhere because an MP like had like the, you know, top shelf, like just where your eyesight is.
It was our home turf. The IP was huge here. You know, US was always the most difficult at the very beginning because we were unknown. The IP was unknown, and we had no track record, and we didn't really have money to invest in the marketing. So, you know, this is very simple: go big or go home. But we've managed to build our presence step by step, and at the end, it worked out really well. And although, you know, you have to remember, like Witcher 1 was more for the core gamer, for guys like us. So, you know, the interface wasn't too clear. I remember, you know, talking to some media, and it was almost like a pride. Did you play the Witcher 1? Yeah, it's kind of hard, but it's good. It's so rewarding, man. I survived it. Yeah. So that was this kind of game. Talking about the Enhanced Edition box, that's the box we had in Poland at the release. And we spent quite a few months to convince Atari that it's worth to spend on the additional cost of goods to have this amazing box for release of the Enhanced Edition. And actually, this box worked magic. It was so beefy. There was a lot of additional stuff. It was DVD with videos. I think we had a short book or short story.
Yeah, there was a book there. There was, I think, some form of a soundtrack also.
So
there was a lot of like CDs.
It's like a collector's dream, and although the physical editions are not that big anymore these days, we still continue this way. Like we believe that if you buy a physical box, you really should get a physical content, not like just
your money spent.
Just an empty box.
Yeah. And that was kind of the norm, and this is what I always loved about the companies. Like whenever starting from that beefy box, that was kind of like, wow, they actually put a lot of like thought and consideration into this instead of just other games was just like I was just opening a box CD. That's it. Maybe small instruction, and that's all.
I think that was sort of our advantage. We had this one product at a time, and we're totally passionate and paranoid about it, and we're really planning every tiniest element, and iterating on it. I'm talking about the physical content and thinking like, what we as gamers would like to have, and the same. The same technique applies until this very day. We really spend a lot of time on the content of the box, both digital now and physical as well.
Yeah. I always like that we look from the perspective of gamers because we're gamers. Like you also mentioned before, this is a product of passion, and it started from the passion for the Witcher universe, and you kind of took it, and whatever you were doing, each step of the way, it was just putting like more passion into it. When it comes to the whole process, and after having the game out, is there anything that stood out the most for you in terms of this passion that was actually put into the project? Was there something that everybody like pretty much put their heart out on in this box, in this game, and everything, the quests and the story, the world, the characters, like bringing everything to life? Was there anything that kind of,
I think,
to you is like the number one thing?
Yeah, because one side is I worked as joint CEO, and that's what I did until today. And I work alongside everyone. So as I was focused more on the publishing side and the business side, I remember these moments of glory when we're showing it to the press and to the gamers. This is always, I mean, until today, it's super important because people think it's really like, hey, they showed the stuff at E3 and it was good, and that's it. No, months and sometimes even a year goes into preparation, and then that's the ultimate moment of verification, how good your game is.
Yeah.
And it was really fueling us, giving us power, and then we're taking more and more developers to show this to them. Because I know, talking to our devs, that if you work internally for a long time, you really lose the external perspective. And then if you come to a show like that, be it E3 or Gamescom, and you see people's reaction to certain things, like you show them the gameplay.
Incredible.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's really, hey, what I've created makes people happy. Gives them joy. They like this, they don't like that, because there's quite often some critics, but some criticism, or it's a moment to improve certain aspects as well. But it is important. So it was always a constant dialogue. We're showing stuff and taking the feedback and then digesting and getting this energy through the dialogue.
Yeah, and this energy is very tangible. I remember I had the privilege of going and showing like Thronebreaker for the first time, but also later Cyberpunk, and actually showing it in a cinema for people and explaining everything. And first of all, you want to go do a good job, because there's a whole development team putting all their passion into the project itself, and you're there trying to show it to everybody and do it justice. And when you actually show it to them, and you see the reactions of people like walking out, just giving you like thumbs up or saying this was amazing, or taking you to the side and actually talking to you about it, that's where you kind of feel like the passion that you're putting out and that other people are putting out is coming right back at you, right? So they're kind of deflecting that back to you.
I think it forms us. Yeah, that's who we are. Like we are not making these games in isolation and then suddenly kaboom, rabbit out of a hat. But it's a dialogue, so we show elements, we show bits and pieces, get the feedback, get the energy, work on it, and then show some more. And then at a certain point, release the game. But then after releasing the game, it's pretty much the same. We get the feedback, we try to improve certain elements, And I think that's very much us. And as I said, it was a long time ago, but there was a first E3 when, for the first time, we showed something, and we sort of understood that we want to proceed this way, and it worked very well for us.
Yeah, I feel like with every game show that we go to, and I think E3, and also when we go to Gamescom or anywhere else, and we're showing actually the game to people, it's kind of like, it's stressful because you're going out on the big stage and showing something for the first time, but also like I feel like it's.
But whenever we do this, I remember my first game shows and first presentation I was attending as a game distributor from Holland. So really like a small market, and nobody cared about us that much. Anyway, at that time, and I was at ECTS in London, and I was shown Messiah, for example, by Dave Perry, or someone else, Fallout 2 or something, or Baldur's Gate. That's how I met Greg and Ray, and being able to witness, a product that it's not fully shaped, but having the privilege of talking to the creators, and I was like totally sold on it
Yeah.
immediately. Of course, I saw a lot of games I didn't like, but then I thought that we got to do this. We got to have our own game, and we got to show it to people and create it for them.
Yeah, and it's much different because you're talking about something that you're actually working on, and you develop this relationship and friendship with everybody working on the project itself. So it feels like even more personal. Plus, it's an IP that you like. It's a world that you love. So, I mean, it's even more meaningful in this sense.
Yep.
Incredible.
Incredible. Amazing adventure, and it continues. I'm super happy.
Yeah, it continues, which is even better. And yeah, we're actually seeing gameplay in the back, which we haven't been talking a lot about, but this is a quest with Shawnee, and we're seeing some of the characters which you know very well from the books. So there's Dandelion, there's Zoltan, so we're actually seeing them for the first time come to life. That's
I haven't
crazy.
played a game for more than 10 years, and I gotta do it. When I look at it, I really want to replay it.
I have the same thing. Every time I see it, I'm like, I need to replay this once again. Because I also played it a long time ago. I remember, I think I was 19 or something, and my dad got me like it was like our first like proper PC for gaming at that time. So it was one that was in my room, and I remember I was sitting till like 4 in the morning and just playing like nonstop.
Like the usual, RPG session, yeah?
Yeah, and just, waking up, and I remember I started working at the time, so I had to go to work. I was like super sleepy, but got through the day, came back home, and rinse and repeat. It was just amazing. And yeah, the quests and actually the characters coming to life was something that stood out to me the most. And I feel like we keep on continue doing this, right? And we're kind of also expanding the universe. Like there's so many things that happen throughout the years that it's been incredible.
So when you're saying all that, like Witcher worked on it, so I knew the plot. I still played it in the same fashion, but actually when we had only the distribution business, we were distributing Blizzard, we were distributing Interplay. So when there was a new release, and we had it usually a few days earlier. I remember, for example, Diablo 1 and Diablo 2. We are closing the office earlier, and together with Michał and a couple other people, we were playing the games, and sometimes finishing at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And then we were totally dead the next day. We couldn't do any job, but we were like, yeah, we love it. We love it. So Baldur's Gate the same, Fallout's the same. Yeah. Amazing times.
That's where it comes from. It's really cool that you took that passion and actually wanted to do something of your own, because I mean, we all grew up pretty much in the same way. Like when PCs were more and more available, there were more games actually coming to our market, which is also something that wasn't as widely available back in the day. But when this was happening, we saw it kind of growing, and we were totally consumed by it. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like the immersion is very similar. I remember I replayed 3 or 4 years ago Fallout 1, which you can say looks pretty bad considering the graphical standards of today. But I think it took me 5 minutes to forget about the graphics and just to live in the story. Yeah. And I was sold. I spent hours in it. Yeah,
immersion is very, very important. And if you're an RPG enthusiast, and like you said, you were all into RPGs at that time, and I feel like I was also into RPGs at the time, so it was very natural just to like
actually, I have to say, which one still looks really good. Still looks really good.
For me, it stood the test of time, like easily.
Yeah.
And I just love the storyline, and I feel like throughout all the next games, which we'll be also talking about in the following streams, like Witcher 2 and Witcher 3, the story aspect was always kind of the core. And like you said, it's a different type of story because it's not very high fantasy. It's more a little bit gray, dark, which Witcher World was, right? So not everything is black and white. There's shades of gray in between.
I still remember, we were showing, I think at Gamescom, The Witcher 1. And at that time, I didn't read the Game of Thrones. I read the short stories, the Sandworms and something else from Martin, quite a few of them, but they didn't touch of the Game of Thrones. And I had one of the journalists coming out of the presentation. He was like, "Hey, it feels very Game of Thrones." And I was like, and then then I started reading. Then I saw the TV series, and I thought, okay, there are some common elements, like in terms of heroes die, heads of the main characters are being chopped off, and then you trot on. It's all good. Amazing stuff.
Incredible. Yeah, like you say here, like this world is very very different than what you normally see, and yeah, like I think the comparison with Game of Thrones is also the one that always comes to my mind. But yeah, plus also like having Geralt here as the main protagonist was also awesome. I know there were some ideas and concepts before that in order to have like your own Witcher, right?
The first demo was with a Witcher, the first E3 demo,
Yeah.
and then I think again it was Michał Kiciński who came to the office at a certain point and said like, first he discussed with me, Marcin, I need to shake things up. People will be very unhappy. Help me. I said, Michał, I like your concept of having Geralt. It's very iconic.
Yeah.
Let's go for it. And of course, there were complaints. People were crying, no, let's not do it. It will, take a lot of the game. Like people won't be able to create their own character. But I said, Geralt was so strong and so iconic that we didn't have any doubts, and
Plus
it
the
worked
RPGs,
out super well.
Yeah, the RPGs at the time were kind of that you were creating your own character, your own party, which was kind of
fairly
around
everything.
This. Yeah, pretty much everything. And here, you were sold on a.
And that was another point of differentiation and unique selling point. But also, I think it was sort of extending the fantasy from the stories. So for everyone who had a chance to read the books, it was like obvious that it has to be Geralt. But at the same time, we had a lot of people who played the game and then read the books because they were translated later or they were not available in their country. And I was saying like, wow, it all fits together. Like you said at the very beginning that it was your imagination of how the stories or the books should be, and it was exactly the same for me.
Yeah, and I also like that the work done by Andrzej Sapkowski is like everything there is kind of shown and explained that you can actually imagine it in your head. So I think it also made it easier to actually like create. Like here we're seeing like a fight with a flutter, right? And this is how you would imagine the monsters. And I also think that whenever we were creating monsters for any of our games, or like the big bad guys, like there was a lot of like very like thought process and details that went into this. Actually makes it look like something that you would imagine in your head when you're reading the book.
I totally agree. I wasn't when I played to the game, I didn't question even one monster, like because sometimes you play a game and I don't know, you read a book and then you say like, no,
you see it like, no, this is not what I imagined, right?
Like I was a huge fan of Lords of the Rings, and I saw the trilogy. I was like, the orcs? No way, man. Those are not my orcs.
Yeah, this is not the ones that I imagined in my head. Yeah, but it was really cool, and like I mentioned also in the beginning, like seeing the characters here, it's just even better. Like Dandelion for the first time, and how witty and the jokes and everything in the story is pretty much how I would totally imagine it. Yeah, and also
but then,
at
the very beginning, the quest with the witch. This is the thing I remember the most, because I still remember that I was so surprised with the twist of the story.
Yeah.
For all those of you who didn't play, I strongly encourage you to play. It's at the very beginning of the game, and I was sitting there, and it's my game. I know it. Of course, I forgot about this part, or I didn't read it, or something. And there's plenty of quests, so I didn't know everything. And I was like, oh my God, really? It's so cool.
Yeah, I have the same thing. It's like, I know that we normally, like working with community and peer and stuff like that, we normally tend to play it earlier and experience it. I always try to not maybe see the whole thing, just see a little bit of the game itself, because I feel like it kind of spoils the initial like impression. But then even if I see it and I replay it myself, like sitting at home, it still has this like.
But besides, if you go through it as the full package, it's completed. There's a consequence of quest. It's suddenly you did something differently here than you played during the presentation. Something there, something changed. And then you have a very different experience. Like
different dialogue options.
Yeah, exactly.
Like different routes that you go.
And the non-linearity is a super cool thing to replay or generally be surprised, because I think that's. At least what I'm looking for in entertainment. I want to be, in a way, surprised, but by the story, by the twist. If I go to a cinema and I know exactly what will happen in the movie, and sometimes sometimes
you
I
can
see
predict
it,
kind of what's
I'm
going to
like,
happen.
okay, he will do this and she
Yeah.
will do that, and then they will do this, and I leave them out. Okay, it was a bore.
Yeah. So you don't want
Yeah.
that predictability, and I always love that there are multiple choices and there are actually consequences to what you
And
choose
very
and what you
late,
do.
you know. So
Yeah.
that was a novelty as well. That was a novelty, and some people I remember were complaining like, why I choose now. I want to know now. Like in all
Yeah.
the other games, no, wait,
Yeah.
But they appreciate it at the end.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And if they don't like it, they replay it, but they have to replay like 5 hours of the game. Yeah?
Yeah, that's what I also like. I know people that went back and would be replaying quests in order to see if they can get a different outcome.
Yeah.
And it's also in this quest when you're meeting the grandma that is with Sean, you're living together. Like you try different dialogue options when she's like, "Get out, out!" It's always pretty much the same one, but people are still trying to get like different things. And I also remember like, when it comes to getting endings and things happening within the games, people are like, we're either happy with this or maybe, I don't agree. Or I always loved this discussion. This was actually for Witcher 3, which was which ending is the good one. Because, and I saw like, people from the community talking amongst each other like, no, this one's the
I
lower
remember the whole
one.
company was talking about it for a few weeks. What did
Yeah.
you get this? No, it's bad. I got this one, it's better. And then we were replaying,
I remember when I was getting recruited as a community assistant back like 6 or 7 years ago, that was one of my questions, like which ending did you get in The Witcher 3? And based off of that, you can already tell the personality or the kind of the playing style of that person.
Cool.
Amazing. Awesome. I think we went over through everything Witcher 1. Is there anything from this whole experience, like looking back, is there anything that you maybe thought that you guys could do differently, or any lessons learned at that time that you moved on to Witcher 2 and Witcher 3? Is there anything that kind of stands out if you look at it from the perspective of where we are today?
I'm not the person that's really analyzing the past in a
I'm the same, so I
regretful way, in terms of like I'm saying complaining or anything, but saying like, yeah, I could have done this better, I could have worked more, or whatever. I think we are super lucky. We met quite a lot of amazing people on the way who helped us. But we are lucky to get so many talented developers working with us. It was a little bit easier because everybody wanted to work on The Witcher, but still, we didn't do any game before, so they were working on a dream more. Yeah. And I will never forget what Ray and Greg did for us. But this, we are in touch until this day.
Wow.
Actually, more with Greg. I met him like 2 years ago.
Did you guys go back in time to
a little
talk
bit,
about
yeah. We talk about games. He's still playing a lot.
Awesome.
Not playing that much anymore, but he's running his beer production company, and he's got a little brewery in Edmonton. Not that little, actually, with great food and drinks. If you're in Edmonton, you should definitely visit.
Nice.
But these are these are the moments that you cannot plan. That they just happen. And
everything just fell into place.
Yes, and sometimes, especially if you go to a process like, I don't know, looking for a publishing partner and signing the deal for 1.5 years, and you're hardly surviving as a company. But these are very forming moments, and then a lot of good is staying with you afterwards if you go through it, if you manage to go through it, because sometimes you don't, yes, and you got to change course. But that's also a lesson learned. I think the biggest struggle we had was really after Witcher 1, when we started working on the console version with an external developer. And then the tech, which was the mix of Neverwinter and our tech, was really super duper difficult to port, and then we had to cancel the project. But that was, another lesson learned. So that's why we started developing Red Engine for Witcher 2, which we use in Witcher 2 and Witcher 3. So I think it's like a road. I want to say a road trip adventure, but sort of
with a lot of adventures along the way.
It's actually like an RPG. There are decisions and there are the consequences,
Yeah.
and you're constantly learning. So I think if you're positive, humble, smiling all the time, and you know it helps you go through the difficult moments, and then there are some amazing moments, like in all the Witchers.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it. I'm really grateful
Plus
for
the passion being the driver.
Yeah,
here.
like you know.
I think people see the other people's
you know,
passion.
the
right?
key is, you know, like in an RPG game, get a great team. Right now the team is kind of big, so it's not an RPG game per se. It's hard. It will be hard to control the characters, and you know, and we together embark on an amazing adventure. You know, and at the end, you know, we can kill the dragon and you know meet the princess and. Live happily ever after. But when you start this live happily ever after, you think like, wow, but there's another adventure, and then we embark again.
Yeah, it's incredible. And yeah, like you said, it might be a tough road, but like going through the whole process and actually getting to the end is just incredible.
You cannot plan, you know, showing the game to the world. You cannot plan meeting amazing people. You cannot plan failing certain milestones, and thanks to it, you know, changing creative choices in the game. Like, it all happens, you know, and if you listen to yourself, listen to the people around you, you can come out with something better, something great that ultimately, you know, all of us will enjoy playing. And I think that's the most important part in all of it. That when gamers get their hand off the game, they say like, wow, that's amazing, that's moving me, like this memorable moments. That's what I love about games.
And something that will stay with you, because like you talking about the process right now, I can also through your words relive that moment, but also kind of see it through your eyes. And these are things that are very like vivid in your, like, because you experienced them at that time, and they kind of are branded within you, and you remember them.
Yeah, and then it all like it's like in life, you know, and this is the story of our company. It's fully non-linear. There are very different roads we pick, and there are consequences, and then there is a certain outcome. And you know, you have good attitudes, and you work with amazing people, you can get to great places together. I think that's about it. And at the end, you know, there is this game that people enjoy, and we give a part of ourselves to them, and they have these memorable moments within our worlds that we have created. And I think this is the bond. This is the connection we're having. I would like it to continue this way.
Yeah, that's how it started for me personally. It started from Witcher 1. That's where the connection happened, and then I remember playing all the other games, one after the other, and I was just waiting for the release date to actually get my hands on it and play it. And yeah, like you said, the whole experience was just amazing.
Yeah, that's an important part of the quest.
There's an important part of the quest that we were getting to. But for those of you that haven't played or you know are not legal to watch this, cover your eyes. But you might remember how this quest kind of pans out.
One of the memorable moments.
Yes, one of the memorable moments. And actually, it's good because when we actually came this time to the house, the grandma actually let us go upstairs.
And the infamous sex cards.
Sex cards.
We got beaten.
Yeah, I remember it was funny because I was collecting them, and I've always been a card game player enthusiast, so I really like the arts, although they are a little bit erotic, of course, but still the arts and the detail put into them was amazing. All right. I think that's the best place to end.
Yeah, perfect. You wrapped it up really gently and
exactly.
nicely. Thank you very much for the conversation.
Thank you, Marcin. It's a big pleasure. Thank you for taking the time. And thank you, everybody, for watching. And we shall catch you next week with the next stream for Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings.